Good morning. How is everyone in FlossTube land? I can't believe I'm actually doing this, but here I am. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is LaDonna Snellbaker. You may be familiar with Black Branch Needlework or Sampling of Memories. When I started my sampler reproduction company back in 2011, it was Black Branch Needlework, and I recently changed the name to Sampling of Memories, so one of those may ring a bell with you. First of all, I want to say hello to some of the FlossTubers that I watch consistently and that I finally decided to join. So, of course, Farm Girl, Priscilla and Chelsea, Donna from Flannel Jammy's Farm, I think I got that in the right order, and Nicole's Needlework, and of course Kathy with Hands-On Design. So I love watching all of you guys. There's several others, but I couldn't remember everyone's name, so I apologize. So I thought I would start, since most of you probably don't really know me, to tell you a little bit about myself. I live here in Virginia, born and raised, so outside of the Washington, D.C. area. Been married for almost 29 years, and we have 3 boys, William, John, and Lance. William hopefully will watch this from China. That's where he's at right now, teaching English to wee little ones. And he loves it, so he just signed up for a 2nd year. John's still at home with us. He's going to school at George Mason in the fall and studying cybersecurity. And then our little guy will be, he's in 8th grade, so he's still very much at home. So I have a very busy house between the 3 boys, 3 dogs now, and a bird who, when he starts hearing me talk, he's my son's bird, you'll start hearing him maybe in the background. Hopefully not, but he thinks I'm talking to him. So, but that way, if you hear any weird noises, you will know what's going on, because I have a very busy, rambunctious house. It's going to get a little bit busier because my mother-in-law and brother-in-law will be moving in probably the beginning of June. So right now I am in what was our dining room, and I'm taking it over as my craft room. So we never really use a living room and dining room, so it's being switched over, and part of that is making me realize what a hoarder I am. So some of you might benefit from my hoard. We shall see. Let's see here. I did make notes because I knew once I started doing this, I would just completely go blank. So please forgive me for looking at my notes, but you know, the memory only goes for so long. A lot of people always want to know when you start, how did you learn to stitch? Who taught you? So in my case, I actually was a mother's helper when I was about 10 or 11 years old for one of our neighbors. And when the kids would take their afternoon nap, she would be sitting there stitching, and I was just fascinated. And I would just keep asking her questions because I was 10 and I wanted to know. So finally she gave me a little bit of fabric, some DMC threads, and one of her Pat and Gloria Hummel books. So that was how I learned how to stitch. I don't know if she just probably wanted the peace and quiet and gave it to me so that it would occupy me instead of asking questions, but from that moment on I was hooked. As many of you, as you get older and life gets busier, the kids come along and you don't have as much time as you used to. You kind of step away from it for a little while, but I did get back into the swing of things with stitching the shepherd's bush stockings for my boys. So that was what got me back into it. On one of my trips, though, down to In Stitches, which is my local needlework shop in Alexandria, I met Patricia, who she's still there, who, when she asked me where I was from and where I lived and everything, she let me know that there was a sampler guild out here in Loudoun County, just down the road, because I live in Leesburg now, and she suggested I go visit it, which I did, and that was back in 2006, 7. So I've been a member ever since, and most recently is serving as the president of the guild. And I encourage you, I know a lot of you live in areas where there are not a lot of other stitchers that you know of, or organized groups that you can visit, which is one of the reasons why I think FlossTube is becoming so popular. if you have one in your area, go. It's very nervous, I know, walking into a group that you don't know anyone, or you just feel a little bit intimidated, but just do it. Just go, because some of the best friendships you will have will come from those groups. Some of my dearest friends at this point came from meeting them at the Loudon Sampler Guild. So I highly suggest, if you have it available to you, to go. You also learn so much. You have teachers and lectures and field trips that you can go on to just keep learning about what you love. And my passion, if you haven't figured it out by now, are samplers. I love samplers. So I always loved them. I just never really ventured into them because I didn't know a lot about them. So once I joined the guild, I got to learn a lot about them. And stitches and classes and workshops and symposiums. There's just so much out there right now for us, between the materials that we have that can really reproduce the sampler exactly how it was originally, and even how it is now because of the aging and everything that kind of takes place. So after that, getting all hooked on the samplers, I started to collect. So one of my first really nice samplers that I added to my collection is Susanna Rayment, which is this one right here, and I apologize for the glare. There's really not much I can do because the glass is there. This is the original frame, but I absolutely fell in love with her. She was an investment, I won't lie about that, but I found her so charming, and I'll show you once I show the one I reproduced. But at the top you can see where she did learning. I'm sure, like many of you, one of the things that I was told was plan ahead so you don't run out at the end of the line with your word. Well, she didn't do that a few times. So we have a little G up here, and then her duck, geese, or swans, whatever. They look like they get a combination of things. And there go the dogs. So I apologize. I knew it would only be a matter of time before that happened. Our neighbor must be walking Claire. They like to bark at each other. So, Tallulah. So, in here, what I found very charming, they almost look like beehives. I'm not sure if that's what she intended or not, but that's what they look like. And I loved the line that she did right here because it looks like a quilt pattern, and I love antique quilts as well, so I collect them. And I haven't yet made a quilt, but maybe we'll venture into that one day. But I just loved that pattern, and that the color still stayed. The verse I'll read to you in a second because it's faded so much here it's hard to read. I'll go through the different aspects of the sampler, and then I'll go back and read the verse and everything to you. One thing too I will point out here is that she ran out of room again. So this is I believe earth. She has a little H up here, and then when she did her name, she wrote this sampler, and there's a little ER, little ER down here that you'll be able to see a little bit better when I show you the one I reproduced. So she's got the basket of flowers and the birds and several motifs, and then I love this little line down here as well, the flowers, pink and blue. Just adds a nice little touch to it. Her overall border is really very simple border, but I just loved it. And so that was the first one that I actually spent an investment. It was an investment, but I love it, and would not trade them for the world. But Susanna was born in Belchamp, Walter, which is in Essex, around 1801 and 1802. She lived in that area most of her life, and she just, let me look at my notes. She did not marry, so she didn't have children or anything, but she stayed in that area. With the charts that I do include all the history, but she's been a little while, so I don't remember off the top of my head. I can barely remember what I did this morning, much less what I researched a few years ago. So, so this is the actual, see if I can get back far enough. This is the one that I reproduced. I enjoy taking them back to what they would have looked like when they were originally stitched. she was stitched, the sampler was stitched in 1818, so it's 200 years old. So no one's going to look good after being around for 200 years. No matter how well you've been taken care of, you're going to show your age. So I like showing the vibrancy. I mean, the girls back then, they didn't have faded colors. They didn't have, they had bright, vibrant colors because of the dye process at the time. So I enjoy seeing them come back just all brand new. And I also tend to stitch them on a larger thread count for linen, because most people prefer a larger one. And I mean, obviously if you want to stitch it on the same one that the original's on, you can absolutely do that. But to me, the original should remain the original. This is a reproduction. It's intended to be a reproduction, and I like for the originals to stay the original. Because right now with some of the materials we have available, you can do a reproduction and you could put it right next to the original and you would not know the difference, because our materials do such a great job at making it look old for us. But when I do reproductions, I like the color. And the room I'm actually in, we just recently painted it. It was red. So I really like color, but I thought it was time to tone it down a little bit. So that's Susanna. She's my first one, and trying to think what else I can tell you about her. She is stitched in on Lakeside linen and Gloriana silk. And I know a lot of times people try to stay away from the silks. They are expensive, and I get that, but and I'm not against, I use everything, so I'm not against any types of threads or linens or anything like that. I love them all. But for me, the feel of the silk in your hands is just, it's something you need to try at least once. Make that investment, it's worth it. Samplers I definitely tend to do with the silks and the linen, just because they take a lot of time. To me, they're an investment, and I want them to last a long time. And the feel of silk, just try it once. Just try it once. So the other piece of my business too, and one of the reasons that I changed my name last year is back in probably 2011, 2012, I started making, since, you know, with the silks and everything, you get them on the cards with the holes, well, which I love, but I like dressing things up, and that's just part of me. I like things to sparkle a little bit. So I started making these little pendants that I refer to them as thread keeps, but I started making them for myself, and it's really hard to do this now. And I started giving them as gifts for my friends. So that's how my little accessories started. Mainly I started them for me, and they just look like little portraits to me. I include a charm, buttons, usually vintage buttons if I can find some, and if I have the vintage, they're usually mother of pearl, which dress them up a little bit more too. But that's how my accessories started. So they turned out to be very popular, and I'm so glad that you guys like them, because each one is made by me, by hand, and I just love it. It's another way for me to use some of my creative energy, and I'm just very happy that you guys enjoy them as much as you do. And these are limitless. Any image that you can think of that's not copyrighted or protected, I can put on there for you. So I just love doing it. And some of the custom logo designs that I've done they're fun. It's fun to watch them come to life, and then for the shops or the store owner to receive them and just love them, it just makes me happy. So the other thing I love too is when they show up in my Instagram feed. So I always get a kick out of that, and when they pop up, I go, oh, that's my thread keep. I remember making those. So because a lot of them were I just do them one or two times as far as a grouping. I apologize. The sun's out today in Virginia, so that means our allergies are kicking in because the pollen is starting to roll out. So I apologize. So the thread keeps, and these little tab things are just little things that I made instead of the bigger project cards. So that's the thread keep. And then I started to get requests for scissor keeps. So of course I'm going to make scissor keeps. These are really designed, they're not designed for your really big heavy scissors. They're designed for the little embroidery scissors that we all use. This is a little bit bigger, but I wanted it to be able to stand up. So on this one I have a couple of links. It's the same design as the thread keep, with a little stork scissor charm and a vintage black button and a little lobster claw clasp. So you can see they really are just designed for those, and it will go back on there. There we go. For those little tiny scissors that we all use with our bag, you know, our projects and everything, and we'll be sitting on the sofa and then all of a sudden we can't find our scissors. Well, this kind of helps you find your scissors. So, and then the other piece too is the needle keep. So it's got a heavy-duty ceramic magnet on the back, and it comes with another magnet so that if you want to attach it onto a board and have the magnet behind it to reinforce it, you can do that. But your needles just go right there, and there they stay, which is nice. So these are available as well. And I didn't mean for this to be a commercial, but I really do enjoy, I'm very happy that people enjoy these as much as I enjoy making them and sharing them with everyone. So I just wanted to touch on a little bit as to why my name changed, and so it can encompass everything that I do. And people also wear these for necklaces, so I also have people who will purchase them for, you know, have their children's photos on them, or they have a special, you know, family reunion coming up, and they want to have the location, or maybe there's a family home that they want to have on the little giveaway that they give to everyone. So I just really enjoy it. So that's why Sampling of Memories, and there's a verse from a pretty popular one from Samplers that says, "When this you see, remember me." And so I just felt that it was fitting between the samplers and the memories that you kind of collect along the way. So let me see here. I have some other things too, because as I mentioned, I am doing a consolidation. I'll just say that. I tend to collect things. I love going to estate sales and auctions and finding old things. As a matter of fact, our house, when my stepfather came to visit the first time, he looked at me and he said, "Only you would make a new house look old." By the way I had decorated and some of the accents that I did. I just love old things. So, part of going to auctions and estate sales is you collect quite a bit, because some things you can find at a really good price. But I'm also a book lover. So part of consolidating the downstairs basement that I am currently using for all of my creativity, and the upstairs office into one area, dining room, living room, which I think I end up with more space. I just need to show it a little bit better since it's in the main part of the house. So as you can see, I've got my boxes. I love wooden boxes. I love antique sewing tools, but I really love books. So in my searching down there, I found out that I have quite a few of the same book. So I'm sure none of you have ever done that, where you go home and you've bought the same chart 3 or 4 times. Yeah, I do books. So one of the big sampler authoritative voices, and who really shared and featured and brought to love American samplers, was Betty Ring. Betty Ring had an extensive collection, and if you're familiar or love samplers at all, you know her books, her lectures that she did. I have the Girlhood Embroidery, a set of 2, which I'll show in a second. I have her American Needlework Treasures. A lot of these are all out of print. So if you find them, it's going to be at an estate sale or an auction from someone who is downsizing, or the family needs to pass things along. eBay, Amazon is another good place to look. Any old used bookstores that you wander in, or thrift stores, I would definitely check their book section, because you can find some amazing vintage antique needlework books that you just can't find anymore because they do limited runs, and once they're gone, usually they're gone. So this one, she has some phenomenal pictures of samplers, morning samplers. She gives a wonderful job of history. This one's actually broken out by the states, so it's really good when you're doing any research if you come across a sampler, because they do tend to have some very similar styles because of the way they learned. It was very regional. They didn't have, you know, even if they had a newspaper, the news was usually old by the time they got it. They didn't have telephones, they didn't have internet, they didn't have near the resources that we have available to us. So they only knew what was in their area, or whoever the local teachers were that were teaching. So she did a wonderful job of composing and compiling all this information. So if you can find any of her books, I recommend grab them. They're definitely worth it. A few years ago, I think it was maybe, I can't even remember the year, they all start to blend together after a while. Her family, she had to, she was getting up in age, and so she needed to go into a facility for care, and so they were auctioning off all of her samplers at Sotheby's. And this is another thing to look for, because these do come up in a lot of the American history or folk art auctions. They textile auctions, because usually people that collect things like this, they usually don't stop with one. Trust me. So she had a beautiful collection, and they auctioned it off. So our guild actually hopped on Amtrak down at DC and went up one morning. We went to the auction. We were able to see all of the samplers on display because they had preview showing before the actual auction. Wasn't there for the auction, did watch it online though, and most of them did go well out of my price range, but I was also able to pick up the catalog. So all of the items that were up for auction are listed. There's a little bit about them. And then you can actually, I actually printed out and saved on my computer what the prices were that they realized. And for those of you that do not know, I should have marked this ahead of time, but the sampler that went for the most was well over $1 million. So, and I'll provide a link to some of this information down below. Now I'm saying down below, look at that. So I'll provide links so that if you guys want to go look online, some of these resources that I'm talking about, I'll make them available down there for you. So, but definitely keep your eyes open for those, because they're usually pretty reasonable, between 30 $60 bucks, but they're worth keeping, because a lot of these went into private collectors' hands, and once they're gone, they're gone. But what I really wanted to talk about was her collection of Girlhood embroidery. So let me turn it around the right way. It's a 2-volume set. So it's very nicely done. She did a beautiful job of photographing and, you know, talking about everything, and it's just a very well done. And these are out of print. I mean, these books you will get on eBay, Amazon, or someone's you know, auction that they're getting rid of stuff. But she just does a fabulous job, and she does it's not just cross stitch and samplers. It's embroidery, silk embroideries. The morning samplers are really popular. In here, she just has some phenomenal pieces that she talks about. I mean, look at these. But, you know, a lot of them do go in private collector hands, and once they go there, they may never be seen in public again, because they may get passed down through the family. And people collect samplers for a variety of reasons, because of the history perspective. They look at them from the standpoint of folk art, American history. So there's so many, because there's genealogy on them. You have the girl's name, you know who the stitcher was. You know pretty much by the style, especially if it's an American sampler, what part of the country she lived in. So it gives you a huge start on being able to find information about her. So people find them very interesting for a variety of reasons, and collect them for a variety of reasons. So part of what I was doing when I was going through everything is realizing, like I said, I've got lots of duplicates. And this happens to be one set that is a duplicate. So what I decided to do is offer this up as a giveaway. Don't use the word giveaway. apparently people stock that, and I do want this to go to someone who's watching, who has subscribed. Maybe take the time to follow me on Instagram or Facebook if you don't already. Leave a comment down below and let me know what your favorite thing is to hoard. I mean, that's pretty simple. And everyone who leaves a comment will be entered into a drawing to win the set of books. So, share. Let people know that I'm out here on FlossTube, especially all your sampler friends, and enter for a chance to have a set of books. And if you want to follow me, it's pretty simple. I am sampling of memories at, oh my goodness, Instagram, Facebook. And you may already follow me on Facebook because I changed the name, so I kept, so it says Sampling of Memories, formerly Black Branch Needlework. So then that way I could combine the two and not lose the followers that I already have, had following me, or confuse them by sending something else to them. So thank you so much for joining me. I have no idea how often I will be able to sit down and do a FlossTube. Things are pretty crazy at home, and they're going to get a little bit more interesting, but I do thank you for joining me, and I will try to at least do this once every couple weeks. Thank you. Have a good day.